Beware the smiling enemy, for their blade is hidden not in hand, but behind their kindness. Here's the uncomfortable truth, my friends. The person who wants to destroy you doesn't come crashing through your door in the middle of the night. They come through your trust. They come through a compliment, through shared laughter, through coffee on a Monday morning and support that feels just a little too perfect. See, when someone hates you, you know it. But when someone wants you gone, for good, they smile while they study you. They help while they hollow you out. And by the time you realize the threat, it's not knocking anymore. It's already inside. Before we dive into this intense topic, do yourself a favor. Press that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me until the very end. Because once you hear these signs, you'll never look at certain people the same again, and maybe, just maybe, you'll spot the danger before it strikes. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in a garden surrounded by blooming flowers, sunshine warming your face. It all seems peaceful, but just beneath the soil, something dark is growing, roots twisted, silent, poisoning the earth. That's what a person with deadly intent looks like in real life. Everything seems calm on the surface. But the storm, it's underground, it's quiet, calculated, patient, and most of us never see it until the flowers start dying and we can't figure out why. Let's break a lie wide open. Not all enemies come with loud voices and slammed doors. Some come dressed in love. Some are patient enough to wait years to see you fall. Not because you wronged them, but because your light offends their darkness, your progress threatens their stillness, and your peace disturbs the chaos they refuse to face within themselves. That's why they smile. That's why they help. Not because they care, but because they're close enough to strike without being suspected. The ancient Stoics were never naive about the nature of people. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But how do you react when what's happening is hidden? When it's not war but sabotage, not confrontation but slow corrosion? My friends, you react by waking up. You react by becoming the kind of person who trusts your instincts more than sweet words, who observes patterns instead of excuses, who guards peace the same way a warrior guards a kingdom. Now, I'm not saying be afraid. This isn't about living in paranoia. This is about survival. This is about clarity. Because the real threat isn't always the one who curses your name. Sometimes it's the one who knows your schedule better than your best friend. The one who mirrors your words. The one who always just happens to be there when you're vulnerable. That's not fate. That's design. Seneca warned us centuries ago, the wounds that cannot be seen are more dangerous than those that bleed. And that, folks, is what today's video is about. The invisible wounds, caused not by hate, but by intent so dark it hides behind smiles. If you've ever felt that something was off but couldn't explain why, if your gut has whispered that someone's energy doesn't match their words, if you've been confused by kindness that feels like a trap, this message is for you. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're picking up on something most people ignore until it's too late. And today, we're going to shine a bright, unforgiving light on the darkness that hides in plain sight. So, stay sharp, stay grounded, and remember, discernment is not disrespect, it's protection. And before we get into the 7 signs, write this in the comments right now. I trust my instincts. Say it like you mean it. Say it like your future depends on it. Because it just might. Hit that like button if you're ready to protect your peace, and subscribe if you're done giving access to people who don't deserve it. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could save your peace or your life. Sign number 1. The smile that never reaches their eyes. The most dangerous people are the ones who smile while plotting your destruction. It starts with a smile. That's how the worst ones begin. Not a frown, not a glare, not a fight. just a smile. The kind that feels warm enough to melt the ice between strangers, but cold enough to freeze your spine if you look too long. It doesn't reach their eyes. Their words are smooth, but their gaze is calculating. They shake your hand, but their grip feels like a silent contract. And deep down, something inside you whispers, "This isn't right." Imagine you're walking through a forest. It's quiet, beautiful, and everything seems peaceful. But behind one of the trees, something watches you. It doesn't move. It doesn't breathe. It just waits. That's what this kind of person does. They don't come at you head-on. They hide behind charm, behind courtesy, behind what looks like respect. And while everyone else praises their kindness, you're the only one picking up on the stench of something rotten hiding beneath. That's when the questions begin to swirl. Am I imagining this? Why do I feel off every time they're around? Why do I walk away from our conversations feeling drained instead of seen? And that's where the lie begins. The lie we've been told since we were kids. That if someone is polite, they must mean well. That if they laugh at your jokes or bring you coffee, they're on your side. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And if someone's thoughts are full of envy, bitterness, or darkness, no amount of fake laughter will cover what their energy reveals. See, we want to believe the best in people. We want the world to be fair. We want kindness to mean safety. But what if it doesn't? What if that co-worker who always shows up at your desk isn't interested in small talk, but in your schedule? What if that friend who always asks about your relationships isn't trying to help, but to gather ammo? What if the one who compliments you the most secretly resents you for everything you've become? That's why this sign is so terrifying, because it's so easy to dismiss. Society doesn't teach you to question smiles. It teaches you to question your gut, to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt even when your spirit is screaming. And that's exactly what these kinds of people rely on. Your hesitation, your self-doubt, your desire not to make a scene. But not anymore. Not after today. You're going to start trusting what your body already knows. Because the truth is, when someone smiles at you but their eyes stay dead, you're not looking at a friend. You're looking at a mask. And masks are made to deceive. This is hard because it goes against our programming. It's easier to spot an enemy who yells than one who whispers. But this is about clarity. This is about power. And power comes from observation. If you feel yourself constantly adjusting your energy around someone just to avoid conflict or confusion, pay attention. That's not harmony. That's survival mode. And you were not built to live in survival mode for anyone's comfort. So what do? You don't need to lash out. You don't need to make a dramatic scene. But you do need to watch. Step back emotionally. Guard your peace. Start documenting the patterns instead of second-guessing your feelings. The Stoics didn't live in fear, but they lived with awareness. And so should you. Your peace is not paranoia. Your discomfort is not overthinking. It's a message, and your job is to honor that message before it becomes a scream. My friends, write this in the comments right now. I trust the silence behind the smile. Because sometimes that silence says more than words ever could. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you will no longer ignore what your spirit already sees. And stay with me, because in the next sign, we're going to talk about something even more chilling. What happens when someone starts showing up in your life not to connect, but to study? What you're about to hear might just change how you look at every coincidence from now on. Sign number 2, they're always watching, but never engaging. The most subtle form of manipulation is when they watch, but never participate. Have you ever had the feeling that someone is observing you? Not in a normal way, like an occasional glance across a room, but in a way that feels like they are studying you. It's like they're taking mental notes on every move you make, every word you say. But when it comes to showing up, truly engaging, they remain absent. They don't join the conversation. They don't offer help. They don't share any real part of themselves, but they watch. Always watching. Imagine you're on stage. It's a small, intimate crowd, but every eye is locked on you. And there's one person in the back, standing perfectly still. They don't clap. They don't laugh at your jokes. They don't make eye contact, but they don't look away either. They're there, silent, observing, calculating. They know when you pause, when you smile, when you sigh. They never give you the satisfaction of engagement. They simply study. That's exactly what this person is doing. They're not here to connect. They're not here to support or build. They're here to learn, to gather. And that's the most dangerous part. They aren't learning because they want to grow. They're learning because they want to outsmart you. Now let's stop for a moment. The voice inside your head might be saying, why would they do that? It doesn't make sense. Why would anyone study someone like that? And here's the hard truth. Not everyone who watches you wants to help you. Not everyone who is silent is peaceful. Some are just waiting for the right moment to strike. You know what's powerful? People who show up. They don't just watch from the shadows. They roll up their sleeves, engage, share their ideas, contribute to the conversation. They're present. But when someone remains on the edge, detached, pulling back every time they're invited to connect, you have to ask yourself, why? That's where the lie begins again. Society tells us that silence means peace, that those who observe are just thinking, reflecting, or processing. But in reality, not every observer is simply considering the world around them. Some are sizing you up. Some are keeping score. They're calculating your weaknesses, noting your strengths, learning where to push and where to retreat. The Stoics understood that this kind of detachment can be a weapon. In fact, Seneca once said, "A wise man does not trust those who are always watching him, but never showing up to stand by him." And there's your answer. The person who is always watching but never participating is someone who sees you as an object to be studied, not a partner in this thing we call life. So, what's your next move? This isn't about confrontation. This isn't about drawing attention to their behavior. That's exactly what they want. They thrive in the chaos of drama and conflict. The real power, my friends, is in the stillness. You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't need to draw the spotlight onto their manipulative silence. You just need to rise. You see, the power doesn't lie in chasing their attention or worrying about why they won't engage with you. The real power lies in not needing their validation. If someone can watch you and still remain outside the circle of connection, that means they don't matter. It's hard, I know. But think about it. Someone who is always on the sidelines, never contributing, never offering value, that's the person who fades into the background of your life when you realize how little they actually matter. Your worth is not defined by their attention. Your value doesn't increase when they choose to look your way. In fact, their detachment is nothing more than a reflection of their own insecurity. They're not watching you to learn, they're watching to control. The key here is recognizing that control is their problem, not yours. And here's the thing, you have something they'll never have, the ability to rise above. They may be observing you, but you're the one who holds the power. Their game is about watching from afar, but your game is about living in the arena. They're not engaged, they're not participating, but you are. And that's the real victory. So the next time you catch someone watching you without participating, without truly engaging, don't get angry. Don't wonder why they don't like you. Don't question what you're doing wrong. Instead, say this to yourself. Their silence is their own chain, and let it go. Because you're no longer waiting for their approval. You're no longer waiting for them to show up. You've already moved on to the next stage of your life, the one where you control the narrative. Write this in the comments. I rise above the silence. This is your power. You've just learned that silence doesn't hurt you. It exposes them. Keep moving forward, my friends. Keep building, keep creating, and keep thriving. The next sign is coming up, and trust me, it's something even more dangerous than the silent observer. Stay with me. Sign number 3. They sabotage you while pretending to support you. Some people don't push you off the edge. They hand you a drink, walk you to the cliff, and smile as you take the step yourself. Unknown. Let's talk about the person who pretends to be your biggest cheerleader. But behind closed doors, they're quietly rearranging the pieces so you fall. Not publicly, not dramatically, but just enough to make things crumble without it ever looking like their fault. That, my friends, is the kind of enemy you need to fear the most. The one who hides their knife behind a handshake and their envy behind a compliment. Picture this. You're building a house, brick by brick. You're focused, inspired, growing. And someone walks by every day, smiling, saying, "Looks amazing, you're really doing well." Maybe they even hand you a tool. Maybe they offer help with a few tiles. But one day, you come back to find the foundation cracked. A few key pieces gone. And you think, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I was careless. No. You weren't. You just trusted someone who looked helpful while secretly removing the very support you were standing on. This is how the sabotage begins. Quiet, strategic, deniable. See, people who want you gone rarely attack your face. That's too obvious. That gives you the chance to defend yourself. No, they move like shadows. They whisper to your friends not to hurt you, but out of concern. They speak to your boss, not to ruin you, but to clarify things. It always comes wrapped in care, wrapped in just being honest. But it's poison in disguise. Because the goal isn't to confront you, it's to make sure you're surrounded by doubt while they stay clean in the process. That's what makes this tactic so horrifying. They don't just isolate you, they make you question yourself. Why does everyone seem distant lately? Why do conversations feel cold? Why does my name suddenly carry weight I didn't put there? You start replaying things in your head. You try to fix what you didn't break. And they sit back, satisfied, while your peace erodes and your confidence cracks. Let's break this lie wide open. Just because someone is nice to your face doesn't mean they're on your side. Niceness isn't loyalty. Politeness isn't protection. And support? Real support doesn't disappear the moment you're not in the room. The Stoics warned us of this. Epictetus said, "It's not what others say about you that harms you, but what you come to believe about yourself because of their words." And that's the trap. The real damage is never in the rumor, it's in the seed of doubt it plants in your own mind. These kinds of saboteurs don't want to win. They want you to lose. Because your progress offends them. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your joy highlights what they're missing. And so they chip away, silently, strategically, until you start to stumble, and they never have to lay a hand on you. But here's where the Stoic strength rises in you. You don't need to react to every whisper. You don't need to go on a campaign to prove your innocence. That's exactly what they want. Because the more you try to explain yourself, the more they spin it. The more you defend, the more it looks like guilt. So instead of getting pulled into their performance, observe it, document, reflect, adjust your circle. Guard your reputation the way a king guards a crown, not with paranoia, but with precision. And when the fog clears, because it always does, people will see the truth. Because character is revealed over time, not in the chaos of the moment. You stay consistent, you stay calm, you stay grounded. That's how you win this battle. Not by exposing them, but by refusing to collapse under the weight of what they tried to build against you. So if someone's name flashed in your mind just now, don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. If the pattern is there, it's there. And the moment you stop making excuses for them is the moment you take your power back. Write this in the comments. I protect my peace. Say it like a vow. Because that's what this is. A vow to no longer let quiet enemies disguise themselves as allies. A vow to no longer let fake support become your blind spot. You've got this, my friends. Keep your eyes open, keep your circle tight. And stay with me, because the next sign is even darker. We're going to talk about the ones who don't just sabotage from the outside, but the ones who infiltrate your trust from the inside out. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Sign number 4. They get close fast, too fast. Be wary of the ones who rush into your life without reason. A true friend knocks. A false one picks the lock. Let's be real, folks. Connection takes time. Trust takes time. Friendship, real friendship, doesn't burst into your life like a firework and demand front row seats to your soul. But when someone suddenly shows up, overly interested, overly helpful, overly available, and you can't quite figure out why, it's time to pause, not celebrate. Imagine this. You're in a guarded fortress. For years you've built walls, not to push the world out, but to protect what's sacred inside. And then one day, someone appears at the gates, not asking to come in, but already inside. Already walking your halls. Already asking where you sleep, what you fear, who you trust. They're not taking a tour, they're taking inventory. That's what this kind of person does. They pretend to care, but they don't care about you. They care about access. They want the passcode to your peace. They want the backstage pass to your vulnerabilities. They want to know your insecurities, your trauma, your patterns, not to support you, but to store that information away, to use it. Maybe not now, maybe not even next month. But when the moment comes, they'll strike right where it hurts most. And you'll realize too late, they weren't a friend. They were a spy. And here's where it gets especially dangerous. They don't come off as aggressive. No, they're kind. They ask deep questions. They listen well. They mimic your energy. They mirror your pain. They create an illusion of closeness. Fast. It feels comforting. But what you're really experiencing is emotional camouflage. The Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. Seneca wrote, "Before you entrust your soul to someone, test their character, not their charm." But we don't always do that, do we? Because charm feels good. And when we're tired, lonely, or healing, it's easy to confuse fast intimacy with real connection. But let me break a lie wide open. Not everyone who shows up in your life suddenly was sent by fate. Sometimes it's a setup. Sometimes it's a trap dressed like a blessing. And when someone speeds up the friendship timeline, when they skip the natural pace of earning trust, when they want in too much too soon, you better start asking yourself, why? So what do? You slow the pace. You protect your space. You don't need to be rude. You need to be wise. Trust isn't built in days. It's built in tested moments. If someone's love bombs your life and expects you to open the vault, don't. Watch. Test. See who they are when things get inconvenient, not just when things feel good. Write this in the comments. I trust slowly, wisely. Say it like a shield, because that's what it is. You don't owe anyone instant access. You owe yourself discernment. And if you feel something is off, trust that feeling. Stay with me, because the next sign is one of the most chilling of all. When the threats aren't just emotional, but start to cross a physical line. Sign number 5. Their jokes aren't jokes. They're warnings dressed in laughter. The devil rarely shows up with a pitchfork. Most days, he shows up with a punchline. Let's talk about those jokes. You know the ones. The weird little comments that make your stomach twist, but everyone else just laughs it off. You better not cross me. I know how to make people disappear. Haha. Or, if I ever snapped, you'd be the first to know. Sounds like humor. Until it doesn't. Until one day you realize those weren't jokes. They were disguises. This is one of the most sinister signs, folks, because it hides in plain sight. It walks through the door with sarcasm and leaves behind psychological shrapnel. These people don't threaten you outright. That would be too risky. Instead, they dress their darkness in comedy and call it harmless. But you feel it. You feel the chill underneath the chuckle. You feel the way their voice doesn't quite match the words. You feel the way your body tenses when they speak. Imagine someone handing you a gift-wrapped box. Everyone around you says, "Open it. It's just a joke." But something inside says, "No." Something feels wrong. That's because you're not overreacting. You're recognizing the wrapping paper doesn't match the weight of what's inside. Here's the lie people love to spread. They're just kidding. Don't be so sensitive. But the truth is, jokes reveal what someone thinks they can get away with. And the ones who test your boundaries through twisted humor are measuring how far they can go. They're probing, watching how you react, seeing if you flinch. Not because they want to entertain you, but because they want to know how far the fall is before you break. The Stoics were never naive about this. Epictetus once warned, "Be cautious of those who speak without restraint, for their tongue is a reflection of their intent." Translation: what slips out accidentally often isn't an accident. It's a glimpse. And it's not just the words, it's the timing. These comments come when you're vulnerable, alone, or emotionally raw. That's strategic. It's designed to land softly but leave a bruise. And over time, those bruises add up. And what started as a harmless joke becomes a pattern of intimidation that nobody else sees, because they laughed too. So what do? Don't laugh along just to keep the peace. You don't need to call them out every time, but you do need to start paying attention. Document the patterns, withdraw access. You're not overthinking, you're surviving. You don't have to entertain what insults your spirit. Write this in the comments. I trust what I feel. Because your intuition is a compass, and if it points to danger, even in laughter, you better follow it. Stay with me, because the next sign, it's when they stop joking and start testing your boundaries in real time. And by then, the games are over. Sign number 6. They start testing boundaries, one small violation at a time. People don't just cross the line. First, they erase it with a smile. This one, my friends, is where the mask starts to slip. It's no longer about words. It's about actions, subtle ones, quiet ones, but intentional. You start noticing they're getting physically closer than before, standing just a little too close, touching your arm when you didn't invite it, showing up at places you didn't tell them you'd be. At first, you tell yourself you're imagining it, but deep down, your instincts are sounding the alarm, and they're right too. See, dangerous people don't show their true hand all at once. They test, they push, just a little, just enough to see if you'll push back. And when you don't, they push again. Because what they're really doing is measuring you, measuring your limits, measuring how far they can go before you say, enough. The first test is small. Maybe they borrow something and don't return it. Maybe they step into your personal space and pretend they didn't notice. Maybe they invade your privacy and laugh it off. Relax, I was just messing around. But here's the terrifying truth. None of it is random. Every little test is part of a larger pattern, a script, a system. They're seeing how easy it is to condition you into silence. And the more you normalize it, the more you allow it, the closer they get to crossing the final line. Because the goal isn't just discomfort. The goal is dominance. Imagine you're in a house. At first, the intruder knocks. Then they test the doorknob. Then they leave it cracked just a little. Then they walk in while you're distracted. And by the time you realize what's happening, they've moved in. That's how this works. They don't break boundaries, they erode them. The Stoics knew this kind of danger well. Marcus Aurelius warned, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And when someone's thoughts are dark, manipulative, or obsessive, eventually their behavior begins to reflect that. You can't ignore the shift. You can't brush it off. You can't keep giving free passes to someone who's clearly testing how much of yourself you'll surrender before you finally push back. And yes, it's hard. Because these people don't come at you with violence. They come at you with charm. They create just enough confusion to make you question yourself. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm just sensitive. But let me break the lie right here. You are not being sensitive. You are being aware. So what's your move? Don't explain. Don't justify. Don't wait. Start tightening your boundaries like your life depends on it, because sometimes it truly does. Create distance. Withdraw trust. Take back control of your space, your time, your energy, and write this in the comments. I defend my boundaries. Say it loud. Say it like armor. Because someone who truly respects you won't test your lines. They'll honor them. Stay with me, because next we face the most terrifying sign of all, the one who plays the long game, the one who hides behind time itself, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sign number 7. They wait in silence, playing the long game. The most dangerous enemy is the one who waits, not the one who attacks. Let's be honest, folks. Most of us fear the loud ones, the people who rage, explode, lash out. But the real threat? It's the one who doesn't make a sound, the one who never reacts, never panics, never shows a crack in their mask. They don't confront you, they don't argue, they just wait. And while you're living, healing, building, they're sitting in the shadows, planning. These people don't want chaos. They want control. And control to them isn't about power today. It's about positioning for tomorrow. They are patient, calculating, cold. They don't want to burn your world down with fire. They want to pull one brick out at a time until it collapses on its own. And they're long gone by then. Their strength isn't in how they strike. It's in how long they're willing to wait for the perfect moment to do it. Imagine someone watching a clock, not just for minutes, for years. Every time you think you're safe, every time you let your guard down, every time you rebuild the parts of yourself that were once broken, they're there. Not to clap, not to support, but to study. They wait for the moment when your support system thins, when you move, when your circle shrinks, when your defenses are down. And that's when they show up, not as a storm, but as a shadow you didn't notice until it was too late. This is what makes them terrifying. They don't make mistakes. They don't move in emotion. They move in strategy. And while you've forgotten the pain they caused, while you've forgiven, grown, moved on, they've been sharpening the knife in silence, because they don't want to hurt you in passing. They want to hurt you when it will matter the most. The Stoics warned us of this kind of enemy. Epictetus said, First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You want to be protected, then act like it. You want to be wise, then stop letting time soften your vigilance. Not everyone who stays quiet has moved on. Some people are just waiting for silence to turn into weakness. It's easy to dismiss this sign, because time has passed, because they've been nice, because things seem fine now. But that's the trap, that's the lull. The longer they wait, the more you assume they're harmless. But what you don't realize is, they've never stopped playing the game. You just stopped playing defense. So here's what you do. Stay grounded. Keep your boundaries. Protect your plans. Don't overshare. Don't give access to people just because they've been quiet for a while. Stillness is not always peace. Sometimes it's preparation. Write this in the comments. I see through the silence. That's your armor now. Stay alert, stay focused, because what comes next isn't a stranger. It's the consequence of ignoring patterns you already sensed long ago. And there it is, my friends, the truth most ignore until it's too late. If even one of these signs made your gut twist, don't dismiss it. Trust your instincts, protect your peace, and move with wisdom. Share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more Stoic clarity.